Right. Okay, we are live. Excited to be here with all of you all today. Todd Cahill. This is our first episode, episode 1 of the YVY Show, the You vs. You Show. And excited to really just really bring this show to add tons of value to each and every one of you that are watching all over mainstream Facebook and YouTube, and bringing just incredible guests to this show. And the reason that I titled it the YVY Show, the You vs. You Show, is because yes, I'm the author of You vs. You, the book, if you guys can see it. But more importantly, I think we're all going through the You vs. You battle right now, whether it's you versus your finances, whether you versus your health, of course. There's a virus happening. We're all kind of nervous and protecting our health right now. I just got done with a run. We want to eat healthier. We want to make sure that our financial situation is, what is that even going to look like? So I wanted to bring on some just incredible people that we're not just interviewing and giving you just inspiration. We want to give you exactly like, here's how you win the You vs. You against your finances. Boom. Here's some action steps. Here's some things that you can do, hearing from all of our guests that we have. And again, if you don't know me, thanks so much for following me. My name is Todd Cahill. And again, episode 1 of the You vs. You Show. And we're streaming on Facebook, on my Facebook pages and my YouTube channels as well. Well, today we have our guest speaker, Tenisha Graham. And Tanisha's no stranger to myself. I've been really coaching her now for almost a year. And it's just been tremendous to see her growth, and really just so fun for me as her coach to see her go from not really knowing what her message is to being able to go from teacher to pivoting to launching her podcast, which we're going to talk about today. So if you're watching this and maybe you're creative, and cue the creative, we're going to talk about that. But Tenisha is absolutely creative. She's been a dance teacher for years. She's put on different dance presentations that she's been awarded for. She's been a school teacher for years. She's definitely well known in her community. She's also married with children to an amazing spouse that I've met in Texas. And she's just an incredible person, a leader, and has a massive heart. And I know that she's just adding value so much to people. So as we're in the coronavirus, as we're in the COVID-19 right now, and we heard from our president that pretty much we're at home till April 30th, I want to bring value to all of your living rooms, your computers, your cell phones, whether you're on a run right now, whether you're just sitting there wondering, what the heck am I going to do with my life? How am I supposed to pivot? Maybe you've been a school teacher for 20 years, but you're not in school anymore. So how are you getting paid? How are you creating another revenue stream? So that's what this show is all about, the You vs. You Show. So Tanisha, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to get myself out of the way, but if you could just go over a little bit of bio, a little bit of background for you, just who you are a little bit in your background, and then we're going to get into some Q&A if you don't mind.
Yeah, Todd, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be interviewed with your guest here today. Well, to talk to you about a little bit about myself, I grew up in New Mexico. I grew up in a very great home, and my parents always had me in the arts because I think they knew from an early age that that was my gift, and performing arts was always my gift. And I love performing. I love creating something from nothing. It's just part of who I am, and I think it's the way that God designed me. And so it's been a journey through my adult life to figure out what that looks like. But for the most part, I had dance studios for 18 years. And then 5 years ago, my dance studio just wasn't making it, to be quite honest. It just wasn't making it in the economy. And it was an extra thing that people have to pay for. So I'm sure it's the first thing that people cut. And I had to shift gears. And so that's what I did. I began writing a lot. I did a lot of writing, a lot of just self-seeking and self-care in those years. And honestly, a lot of healing. That stress literally made me so sick. And my dancers will tell you in those last years, I could not get off the ground because my knees hurt so bad. And the stress was literally taking over my life. And so I decided to shift gears. And then about 8 months ago, I knew that I had a book in me, and that's when I hired you. And I had followed you for 5 years. And when I started working with you, then I started seeing everything in a clearer way. And just the strategies that you gave me to meditate was so huge. And in fact, that's how the podcast came about. I was just in a 2-hour like meditation, just being with the Lord. And what's interesting is that is the opposite of my personality. I mean, if I can be quiet for 5 minutes, especially without music, I mean, music is my life. Music fuels me. And to just have 2 hours of silence, I just started getting these ideas, and God just started really shaping everything into motion of how I can help create just this fire of creativity. I hope amongst the world, where people will realize that they've always been creative. There's always something in them that they can share with others. You just have to remember who you are, I guess. And
Absolutely.
so that's been my journey.
Yeah, I was just reading my devotions today. I was in Mark chapter 4, when obviously one of the best passages of scripture about fear is when Jesus was on the boat and there was a squall that came and the disciples were just so scared and he was asleep. And basically he just woke up, and I could just imagine him. He's like, dude, like, guys, like, seriously, all right, be quiet. And then everything was still. But in the verse, it says, quiet, be still. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because people right now, I don't care what their beliefs, whether they're, atheist or Muslim or Christian, or, they believe in source, universe. It's a universal fact. If we are in stillness, because we all have souls. If anyone doesn't believe we have souls, then that's another whole conversation. But because we're human beings and because we're created, we have souls. And what does that mean for you? I think everyone has been so busy. And then COVID-19 happened. And I think the silver lining is we're not as busy anymore. And we have more stillness. Now we can use that as a negative, but we can also take it as a positive. So tell me a little bit about what it took for you to be still, and then that discipline of meditation, and then opening up pretty much what you've had inside of you this whole time, which it allowed you to become more creative so that you can follow your passions and take action after. Because a lot of people want to take action right away. They're frantic. They're, oh my gosh, I got to go. But it's that stillness. It's being still. So share that experience, if you will, with everyone.
Well, I believe that it started when the COVID-19 happened and I finally was at home. And my biggest excuse was I don't have time. And truth of the matter was I did have very little time. I worked full time as a teacher, and I have 3 boys and a husband, and he's a football coach. And so a little crazy. But now that excuse is gone. So I was faced with, okay, it's time to get to business. And so I have been practicing that stillness for many months that that I've been working with you, that you're teaching me how to do that. So it was practice. I didn't just decide I was going to meditate and do it for 2 hours. It took a while to build up to that. But I think also this time has taught me to just shift towards gratefulness. I'm just looking around me, and I'm so grateful for what I do have. And I'm grateful for the people in my life and the coaches in my life and just the nature around me. And when you start shifting into gratefulness, I think it's easier to be still, because you can kind of let go of fear and worry when you let go of that.
So how does somebody, I think shift and pivot, I don't know the difference of the verbiage of it, or really the definition of what's a shift and what's a pivot. But to me, it's like two of the same things. So we use that word a lot. I needed to make a shift, or I needed to pivot. So right now, a lot of people are at that point where they do need to make a shift. I mean, a lot of people, their jobs are gone. 3.3 million last week were unemployed or filed for unemployment in our country. And again, unfortunate circumstances. It's out of our control, a lot of us. But at the same time, it is what it is. We can't just sit around and wait. So here's you're making a shift. You went from a school teacher for years. You're starting a podcast. You're not just starting a podcast, because that's like me signing up for a marathon. Anyone can sign up or start, but you're actually going after doctors and thought leaders and speakers and people of high authority and influence, and you're interviewing them. So you're getting out of your comfort zone. You've never done anything like this. You're learning apps like Anchor. You're learning, Spotify. You're learning how to, brand yourself. You're learning how to share your message. You also have a book in you. So you're finishing your book. You're building your audience. So how cool has it been for you? And at the same time, tell us a little bit about the fears maybe that you had, but how that has shifted, where you are taking massive action now.
Well, I think the biggest fear is that you're going to fail. And especially when you do have failures in your past, like for years, I believe that the dance studio, quitting the dance studio was a failure of mine, when really looking back, it was just my mortgage was too high. It was one simple tweak. But at the end of the day, you have to believe that this new thing you're jumping into is not necessarily going to have the same outcome that you had before, but you have to fight that emotional response of fear.
Yeah.
And how it feels is it feels amazing when you do that. And my first interview on my podcast was you. And I think that's important too. You need to have the first person that you practice the interview on, or whatever you're launching, needs to be someone that you trust, but not necessarily someone that's going to tell you everything you want to hear, but someone that you trust that if it does fall apart, they're not going to hate you. So you start with someone that I think that you trust, but then still you're my coach and I don't want to waste 30 minutes of your time. You're very busy and very successful. And so still there were nerves in that. So it was still stressful, but I will say, if you want to pour the time into yourself, you can learn anything you want to learn, down to a new app, to a new social platform. I have learned so much just because I am pouring my time, every ounce of extra time. I'm listening to books. I bet I've listened to 10 books since I hired you. And so I don't have time to sit there and look at them, but I listen to them when I'm working out. And so I think you just have to take the first step. That's the hardest part.
And a great app is Blinkist, by the way. I don't know if it's if that's the app, but Blinkist, you can read a book in like 5 minutes, every book out there. Well, hey, if you're on, comment, give us emoji, let us know your thoughts so far about the show. Also, the first 10 people that comment, my team is going to reach out to you and actually send you a free signed copy of You vs. You, the 12 Ways to Kick Your Own Ass and Win, because we definitely want to give. We're definitely adding value for the next 60 to 90 days. I'm all about giving right now. I'm all about adding value. It's not about the profit right now as a business owner. It's all about really helping people and really adding value, because we know that the economy, if I was going to prophesy, it's going to be back September, October. It's going to really not be back to normal, but it's definitely going to be back. We are going to be in our homes till the end of April minimum. I would say even end of May at the most. And you might take that, and that's what we're talking about, Tenisha. You might take that as, oh my gosh, that's horrible, and I just want to get back to work. But I will say a lot of people are going to get uncomfortable, because if they stay in the same, background, and if they don't understand online marketing, if they don't understand what they can do online with all the methods that we have, and I'm using StreamYard right now to stream it in 5 different kind of methods that I have, then they're just going to be out of luck. And we have to learn, we have to adapt, we have to evolve as people. So you mentioned fear of failure. What people don't realize is when you are an athlete, or you're a dancer, obviously in your case, you're a dancer, how many times, even as a young girl yourself, dancing, how many times have you sprained ankles or hurt your feet, or fell literally to learn? And of course, we've all failed walking when we're babies, but imagine if we're 1 year old, or whenever that age is, or 10 months old, when you start to walk a little bit, and then you keep falling, and you're like, as a baby, you're like, that's it, I'm done. I feel failure. I'm never going to walk. I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life. So that's kind of what fear of failure kind of looks like in a funny way. It's like people fail a few times. That's like falling off your bike. Are you going to never ride a bike again? So how has that really helped you to build self-confidence to get the wins? Because we also need the wins too. So how has that really helped you pivot in the past 30 to 60 days?
Well, I think one thing that you taught me was just fail forward. If you failed, fail forward, get up and figure out what you learned and fix it. And I have written lots of different ideas down of how I was going to pivot in my life. And I turned 40 this year, and I knew this was going to be my year to pivot. And I like that term because it's a dancer term. But anyway, I think that you just have to start and not be scared to fail. I think the other thing that's really important, and dancers have this advantage, is you just can't care what other people think. If I spent my entire life comparing my pirouette to the girl next to me, or the 8-year-old that is sitting here doing 15 turns on a dime, I would have quit years ago. You can't compare yourself to others. You're so different than any other person around you. It doesn't even make sense. It wastes so much energy to compare yourself. So you fell forward and you dropped the idea of people pleasing, really.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because a lot of people are people pleasing, especially before maybe COVID-19. But I think there's this awareness of just like, oh my gosh, why did I worry so much about this? Why did I worry so much about that? I think a lot of people, things are they're having more perspective, if you will. What's shifted for you? Just out of curiosity. I mean, I'm pretending no one's watching this right now. It's just me and you on a call. what has shifted for you, honestly, being a mother, being a wife, just with everything that's going on? Like, what's your perspective of everything now? Like, of course, was it maybe some fear? You're just like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And then maybe walk me through, you being determined, and almost like the Rocky theme. It's like, okay, you're getting kicked in the butt a little bit, but then you're like, you kind of get back into this, I'm going to totally do something different. How did that work for you?
Honestly, I think it was about 3 or 4 days into actually being with my kids over spring break. And my why has always been, I want to be home more. I want to be present more. I want to have, a brand and a business that doesn't require 70 hours a week of me doing a real job and doing my side job and just doing nothing for a week in spring break other than, writing a bit, just showed me that my why was intensified. And my why is I want to be present and I want to see my kids grow up. My oldest son's 14. He'll be graduated in 5 years. If we go on one vacation a year, we only have 5 more trips with him until he's out of the house. And so just shifting my perception and just seeing how productive I really am when I have 40 hours to myself, it just launched me. I was just creating and I was still, and and I think my stress level just was more in the multitasking. And when that multitasking quit, the stress level just went down tremendously. I could see clearly, and it just launched my writing and my ideas.
Okay, so talk to me about that real quick, because obviously you being a woman, I work a lot with women, which is a huge blessing, because women are just exceptional, amazing, intelligent, smart, caring, loving. I love it. I'm very honored to be a coach to many women. But the one thing about women I will say is they almost brag about being a multitasker. And I thought nothing really of that in the past couple of years, but I read a book called The One Thing by Jay Keller, which is definitely a must read, incredible book by the founder of Keller Williams. And I'm not in real estate, but I just love the book. And he basically has a whole chapter about how not to do multitasking, because that's just being average, and finding the one thing that you're really good at and basically delegating the rest. So tell me how you kind of shifted going from a mother and soccer mom, football. Actually, you're a football mom, really. All your kids play football. Your husband's a football coach. You go into the practices, go into track and field, teaching, driving, doing all the things. How did that shift for you as a mom and as a woman, where you can actually focus on what is Tenisha Graham really good at, and what does Tenisha want to be great at?
Well, I think that it's a couple of things. I think the first thing is just writing down, if you don't have a schedule and if your kids didn't have anywhere to go, what would you be doing? What would your hobby be? And, I remember talking to my best friend Brooke about this, and she's like, what is your hobby? Like, what would you do? And I'm like, I would talk to my friends on the phone. She's like, then start the podcast. And this was after, we had talked about the podcast for weeks, and you've been telling me to do a podcast. You do, that was something I should do. But I think it has a lot to do with your hobby. I think also, I think that you just have to understand that you have God-given talents, and, what are your friends calling you for advice for? What does everybody call you about? What is your thing that's easy? Even the Bible says his yoke is easy. What he gave us should be easy. I mean, everything takes work, of course, but it shouldn't be like something you hate. It shouldn't be something that you loathe. It should be something that creatively flows out of you. And the more still you are, I think the more that flows.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, okay, we talked about a little bit of your podcast. Let's just share with everyone where we can get your podcast, where we can start listening to your podcast. I know it's called Q the Creative, I believe, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so tell us where we can find your podcast so listeners can follow you and on Instagram, and then also find that anywhere, obviously, wherever. Just tell us where that platform is set up.
Absolutely. My Instagram is at Tenisha, Tenisha, Graham, GRAHAM.official. That is my Instagram. We are on Q the Creative Podcast is on Spotify and Anchor app. You can download, I believe, both of those for free and listen. We will probably finish the first season in the next week. I have got interviews lined out like for a week from all over the world, different countries. I'm interviewing people from all over the world. And I really feel like that has been like, it's something that God is anointing. He gave me the idea and then he's just bringing the people to me. So just a lot of wonderful content. And what I love about it is it's not me. It's not my idea. I'm bringing in all these beautiful people and they're teaching.
What that's amazing. What does cue the creative mean? So obviously in the world of tons of podcasts, thousands of different podcasts out there, why would somebody want to listen to your specific, I know this, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but can you give us the context of why specific a niche market would want to tune into you? Who is your niche market? Who would someone, male or female or whatever demographic, who is that demographic that would want to listen to your podcast?
I think male and female both. And I believe it's people that are just needing direction. They're feeling overwhelmed with emotion. Maybe they're at a pivot in their life. Maybe they don't feel creative. I believe that everybody's creative. And I think you just have to tap into it. So my idea is bring people from every, niche around the world and every profession to spark that within the people and just to give them hope. And, hope, like you said, is not a strategy. Hope is learned, and hope is like self-development. It's the podcast is very personal development oriented. And I feel like after every episode, you'll just feel inspired and you'll have nuggets to take away and live during this COVID-19 crisis we're in.
Good. And let's kind of end because these shows are, 30 minutes, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m., 7 to 7:30. That's the show, the YVY Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, if you guys are commenting, definitely give Tenisha a thumbs up for doing such a great job and really just sharing your heart. Definitely want to see some thumbs. Hit the like button. Really appreciate you guys on episode 1. Thanks for Tenisha for being here. By the way, you're calling in from where, Tenisha? I don't think we got that.
I'm calling in from Marble Falls, Texas.
All right, good stuff. And great area, and been around that area to see you and meet you actually for the first time last year. So I want to kind of end with this creative side of us. And, obviously being a woman of faith, knowing that you were created, that word is such a powerful word because if you're a believer, we are all created by God. So literally we're created from dirt. And we go back in the dirt when we're done. But we have this 75 to 100-year lifespan that we live. And we are created, obviously, from our mother's womb. We come out, and we literally are now human beings. So anyone that's living in this boring world, I think Tony Robbins says it best. He says this on stage. He's like, life's not meant to, you get up from a box, you go to the kitchen, you open the box, you get the food from the box, you put it in the heater in the box to heat it up, and then you get in your box to drive to your box, from 9 to 5, and then you get back in your box and drive home and watch the box and eat more box food and then go to bed in your box and then end up 40 years after your career in a box permanently 6 feet under the ground. So a lot of people live a box life. It's not very creative. And anyone, what I found, you're either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, and anyone can be really of the growth mindset, meaning personal growth, growing, transformation, everything that we have is inside of you. But if someone feels like, well, I'm not very creative, and they might think they're not a good drawer or they're not a good painter, right? But that's not what you mean. It's a thought. So how important is it to take a thought, a creative thought, and then manifest it into action? What have you seen already flow from you, and how much joyful are you? Because that's what your book is about, is really finding joy. How joyful have you been in the past even 2 to 3 weeks when COVID-19 is happening? How much joy, they say the joy of the Lord, right, is in the heart. So how much joy have you really had because you are creating?
Well, this is what I believe. Just like you said, the Creator created me in His image. So this creativity is from Him. So the more that I stop and just start to create without those thoughts stopping, this isn't good enough. Nobody's going to like this. Nobody's going to read this. Who's going to listen to a pre-K teacher? If I can shut those thoughts down and just be still and just let it flow, it's incredible. Because here's the other thing, is using that creativity to serve others. That's where the joy hides, is there, because you're helping people. And and in turn, God he said he wanted us to have a life of abundance, and it just all starts flowing. And you don't even really realize what's happening because your heart's in the right place and in line with the Creator. And I believe that's super important. I teach pre-Kers, and when it's raining and we can't go outside, I get the paint out. Every kid, girl, boy, they're painting, and they are in heaven painting and creating. Mm-hmm. What happens as we grow? We have emotions, we have trauma, we have things happen. People tell us who we are, who we're not. And we just need to get back to those babies' mindset where I'm born to create. This is fun. This is my expression. And every kid loves it. It's amazing.
I love that. And we'll end on a very powerful note, very profound note. So 2 things I want to just share before we end our first show today is talent. You're a kindergarten teacher, right?
Pre-K, yes. Before.
Pre-K. Yeah. Pre-K. Okay. So I have a 6-year-old. She's in 1st grade now, but it's a wonderful age. And even my 13-year-old daughter that's all she does is create. She's an amazing artist. But you said something very powerful, because usually a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, they don't have emotional traumas. Yeah. They just don't. So they're just pure as white. They couldn't do a darn thing wrong. And you get to, teach them. And of course, they just want to play and they just want to create. So why is it, from your observation, why is it that human beings, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds plus, why can't we still live like that? Why are we so tied down to fear and mortgages and payments and car payments and stress? And, when we do have this creative side of us, but we're never even using it because we're now in the matrix, I guess what you can call it. And we're just in the 9 to 5. And then when you really take a step back, you're like, why am I even doing this? Like, who told me that I had to do something I don't even love and not follow my dreams? Like, how does that happen?
I think we have to take every thought captive. I think what happens is, it's real simple. We start believing lies. Mm-hmm. We start believing lies that creep in our mind through thoughts, through what people speak on us. We know our tongue is powerful, but we don't realize how powerful it is when people say things to us. Mm-hmm. And so just teaching our kids how to block, take everything captive and help talk them through things that people are telling them about them. And just their self-confidence. I believe that's where the self-confidence starts to go down and the creativity starts to go down. And so just teaching kids how to block their thoughts, and that's hard. And sometimes it just takes a lot of prayer, but I think it's possible. And I believe that it is.
That's amazing. And the last thing I want to say is, and again, I'm not here to spread my faith all the time, because I really respect everyone, and I'm not for a man, I'm not for a woman, I'm for humanity. I just want to make a difference to everyone out there, no matter race, color, gender. I love everyone, but I do love sharing my faith, and of course it's powerful because it's my spirituality, and it's really where I get my guidance from. So there's obviously the parable that Jesus talks about is the talent, and we all know that. And we've probably heard the talent, how one man buried his talent just to be safe. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now, Tenisha. They're like, hey, I got this amount in the bank. Like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to pause life for 30 minutes or 30 days or 60 days. We can't spend any money. Oh my gosh, we just got to watch Netflix for 14 hours and just stay in survival mode. Then there's someone that's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take this and I'm going to double my talent. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to do it. And then there's people that I'm going to 10x everything. I want to 5x it or whatever. So how important is it for all of us to not be that person that buries our talents, even during COVID-19, and just kind of pause and just make sure we got food in the refrigerator and that's it. That's all we're doing, and just protecting our family. So how can we get out of that comfort zone?
I think it's simple. You don't let emotions rule your actions.
Oh, wow.
You don't let emotions rule your actions. You don't let emotions rule your life. Mm-hmm. You take every thought captive, and that's every emotion, and you tell it where to go.
I love that.
And then, you see God work, and he wants you to blow up in this amazing talent and help everybody around you. So he's going to feed that. He's going to cultivate that if you start taking control of your own mind.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And we'll end with this. Tenisha says, Take every thought captive. I wrote that down. That's amazing. I'm going to say it one more time, guys. In this time of COVID-19, I look at it as, of course, our prayers go out to the thousands of people that have died and their families, and it's horrible what's happening. But at the same time, we can control only what we can control. What can we do about it, right? So she said, take every thought captive. That means you are not your thoughts, but you are an observer of your thoughts, and you're taking the thoughts that you really want, your creative thoughts, captive, and you're like, give me that. I own that thought. That's my thought. I'm going to run with this thought. But then if you have a fearful thought, like, what are we going to do? Or you catch yourself, that's where the meditation comes in. That's where her talking about stillness comes in, because you're like, yep, now I'm not going to, I used to be that guy or I used to be that girl, but not anymore. I'm just going to take that thought captive. This thought can go get a divorce because I no longer want to be with this person. So anyway, Tenisha, again, where can people follow you on Instagram? Where can they listen to your podcast before we end the show?
At TenishaGraham.official. And then the podcast is QUE, The Creative, on Spotify and Anchor.
All right. Sounds good. Well, hey, Tenisha, thanks so much for the courage to take action, take your good thoughts captive, and you actually doing what you say you're going to do for yourself. And guys, whoever comments today, we're going to send out 10 free books signed by me, yours truly. We want to get you this in your hands. This book is going to help you through this tough time. You versus you. That's the show for today. Tomorrow, we'll have another guest speaker and another awesome show. Thanks so much for all your comments and watching. Really appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it so
God
much.
bless. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Thanks so much, Tenisha.
Bye-bye. Yeah, thank you.